Cool. All right. So tonight, what we're going to be talking about is nutrient deficiencies. This is a really important topic, and I'm super excited to share this, with you because, when it comes to the program and the things that I teach, there's basically these phases that I help people through. The first one really is all about helping people understand that, one of the bigger problems that we have to solve is digestive issues. Okay, and digestive issues, there's a lot of different reasons for these digestive issues. But at the end of the day, if you're experiencing anything like gas, bloating, constipation, a kind of digestive issue like that, what that essentially means is that you're going to have nutrient deficiencies. Okay, and those nutrient deficiencies are oftentimes really what leads to fatigue, dizziness, and all of these issues that a lot of people tend to experience. And so what I want to do is I want to walk you through more or less like a process and help you understand not only what are some of the more common nutrient deficiencies that you need to address, but also what's the actual best way to go about it. Because as you're going to see, from this training, you can't just start taking supplements and expect your nutrient deficiencies to go away. There's certain things that you have to address first. So let me start out by going over the foundation. Okay, this is the basics essentially. And by the way, I linked to a blog post in this live video. And this blog post basically goes into a lot more detail. I'm going to try and cover the entire thing, during this training. But if I, for whatever reason, can't do that in this hour, then, you're always more than welcome to read that blog post. So here we go. Let me start out by saying that, the biggest epiphany that I had when I was dealing with a lot of these issues was understanding that, autoimmune conditions basically means that you have poor digestion. Poor digestion basically means you have a weak immune system. A weak immune system basically means that you have either poor gut flora, okay, not enough probiotics, not enough beneficial bacteria. It could mean that you have bad bacteria, right? But whether it's bacteria, yeast overgrowth, parasites, a virus like Epstein-Barr virus or something like that, or you have a toxic environment. Usually it's actually a combination of all three. Okay, so the reason why it's important to understand that is because, first of all, probiotics, what they do is they digest food for you. So you can be eating all these foods. You can, I'm going to share with you some of the foods that I use to address all of these nutrients. But if you don't have the right probiotics in your gut, then none of these are going to matter, because it's your probiotics that digest food for you and help you uptake the nutrients. Okay, so the most important thing is you got to have those probiotics. Second is that if you have bad bacteria, pathogens, the reason why they're bad is because they steal nutrients from you, right? So you can be taking these supplements, but if you have some of these pathogens in your gut, you're feeding those pathogens. And this is what people don't understand, is that you're trying to supplement and, say you're trying to get iron or selenium or, one of these supplements, you're actually feeding the pathogens, making them stronger, right? So you have to address that. You have to actually be aware that the food that you eat is feeding whatever is living in your gut. And so at the end of the day, whether it's a lack of probiotics or too much bad bacteria, that's going to create a toxic environment, which is going to basically inhibit your gut's ability to absorb food, right? If you have tar built up in your intestines, that basically limits your ability to absorb some of these nutrients, right? So these are things that you have to understand and address before you go on and try to take on some of these nutrients. So very first thing that you have to do is you want to address that, right? You want to address your gut microbiome. You want to address strengthening your immune system. So the first thing that I always have people do, right? This is basically why, if you are in the group, this is the reason for the hydrate challenge. It's because this is what you have to do before you go and take on these nutrient deficiencies. Like, this is basically preparing you for it. So I want to point out a couple of things that will, I hope, help you understand the importance of drinking water, which I just harp on so much because it is that important. In brewing terms, water is 98% of the product, which is why it's like the most important ingredient, which is why first thing I do when I wake up is drink water, which is why I pay attention to the quality of water that I drink. All of these things matter, okay? But let me point out the top 3 reasons why I believe you need to drink more water. Number 1, when it comes to addressing nutrient deficiencies, you need to improve digestion, okay? And water, the role that water plays in digestion is, number 1, that it's the ingredient that the body uses to produce stomach acid. Okay, one of the main reasons why people aren't getting nutrients from food is because of low stomach acid, right? And low stomach acid, one of the reasons for it is low water consumption, basically dehydration. Could also be low iodine, or some of these other factors, but primarily dehydration is by far the most common, right? And this is why I find most people that I come across don't drink enough water, and they are just not aware of the importance. And drinking tea or other fluids isn't considered water. You have to drink like actual water, pure H2O, nothing added to it, no lime, no lemon, no powders, nothing, just pure water, because that's what your body's going to use to produce stomach acid. And once you produce stomach acid, that's going to allow you to digest food better. But also the supplements I'm going to share with you, your body still needs to basically digest and convert those nutrients and uptake those nutrients, and water is what helps you do that. So number 2 is that water is what helps your intestines push food through and out. Okay, so if you don't drink enough water, the less water that you have in your diet, the more likely that you are to be constipated, right? So this is, again, a lot of people that have all of these gut issues, they either have gas, bloating, or constipation. A lot of that can be very easily solved if you just drink more water. So those are 2. Now, here's the third one, and this one's super important. It has to do with getting tryptophan into the brain. And I actually want to read a little bit from this book right here. This is Your Body's Many Cries for Water. And listen to this, because I think that a lot of people that are dealing with nutrient deficiencies don't understand, this part, this part that water plays when it comes to various functions of the body. But this one's super important. So the brain is designed to resuscitate itself when there is water and salt shortage in the body. It raises the levels of sugar in circulation. So there's so many people that have insulin resistance, high insulin levels, and many of them don't understand. So they're like, hey, I watch what I eat, I don't need too much sugar, but yet your sugar levels are through the roof. A lot of people don't understand that part of that is dehydration. Okay, so it's not just eating too much sugar, right? Which that's obviously part of it. I know that, part of the reason why I had, insulin issues was because I used to have a sweet tooth. But that was not the only issue. The other issue was that I was also dehydrated. Here's an important part, or another part of the book. So it seems that dehydration causes a severe depletion of brain tryptophan, okay, a most essential amino acid in the human body. Serotonin, tryptamine, melatonin, and indolamine are derived from tryptophan. All are neurotransmitters. Thus, tryptophan is the natural brain regulator for salt absorption in the body. So, what that is essentially saying is that when you don't drink enough water, your brain doesn't get enough tryptophan. And when your brain doesn't get enough tryptophan, your brain isn't getting the serotonin and melatonin. I'll just focus on those two, which are neurotransmitters. These are hormones. Serotonin and dopamine are basically your feel-good hormones. So what this is saying is that if you don't drink enough water, your brain doesn't get tryptophan. If your brain doesn't get tryptophan, it doesn't get serotonin, which is basically what would make you feel good. So without serotonin, this is why a lot of people experience things like depression and anxiety. Again, if you don't drink enough water, your brain doesn't get tryptophan. If your brain doesn't get tryptophan, then it doesn't get melatonin. Melatonin is your sleeping hormone. Okay, this is one of the reasons why people are tired all the time, yet when it's time to go to bed, they can't fall asleep, and that's because their brain isn't getting melatonin. And the reason why that is, one of the reasons is just lack of water, right? So you can see, with these reasons alone, like if you're experiencing gas, bloating, constipation, if you're tired all the time, if you are not able to fall asleep, if you're waking up with brain fog, if you're experiencing all of that and you're not drinking water, I don't know what to do to help you, because this is like the beginning. This is the foundation. And, anyone that has been drinking water, if you felt a difference with your hydration, post in the comments below and, let people know what a game changer that has been. Because I know that for me, that was one of the biggest things that I did. I used to not drink water. Now I've developed a habit to drink at least 1 gallon. I drink either 1 gallon to 1.25 gallons, sometimes a little bit more depending on my diet and different activities. Now, I do want to share something with you when it comes to tryptophan and when it comes to getting better sleep. Now, I want to share this with you, but I also want to make sure that you don't abuse of it. So if I can share this with you, type in the comments below sleep and let me know that, hey, you're going to take this information and you're going to be responsible with it. Okay. So type in the comments below. I want to see a little bit of that. Let me see who's in the comments for now. So I see Christina, you're here. Hi. Yvette, good to see you. Gotta take mom out. Definitely watch the replay tonight. Oh, that's too bad. All right. Yeah, watch the replay because this is going to be good. Okay, cool. So Christina, as I just read, the more water you drink, the more likely that your body's going to get tryptophan. The more tryptophan your brain has, the more likely you're going to get melatonin, which means you're going to sleep better. So when I was first starting out, one of the things that I wanted to find out was if the reason why I was having a hard time falling asleep was basically lack of tryptophan, right? So one of the supplements that I use that I don't really use anymore because I don't have a need for it is L-tryptophan. So I have this supplement, which I don't know how old this is because I haven't really used it in a while. Still, the expiration date's still good, but it's been a while since I've actually taken this. But L-tryptophan, if you're having a hard time falling asleep, one of the things you can do is you can take L-tryptophan, right before you go to bed, and just see if you just get a deeper level of sleep. And again, the reason why I say I don't want people to abuse this is because you shouldn't rely on supplements like this to get sleep. Okay, what you should be doing is you should be improving your digestion so that you get tryptophan from the foods that you eat. Okay, so that's basically what what I wish for you is that, hey, try it out. You know, if right now you're not getting good sleep, try it out and see if it helps you sleep, see if it helps you recover, but make it a goal to improve your digestion so that you don't have to rely on supplements. Okay, like my whole thing with, you know, the reason why I teach all this information is because I don't like to rely on supplements. Okay, I take certain things that some people may consider supplements, but to me, there's a distinction between supplements and food. This to me is more of a supplement. Okay, some of the other things that I use, um, I don't consider those supplements. I consider them food, right? So there's a distinction there, and this is one of the reasons why I'm super excited for everyone who is in the energy bootcamp coaching, because as you guys are sharing with me, you know, your diets and you know what you eat, I can see things that, you know, oftentimes a lot of people don't pay attention to, you know, from quality of ingredients to what type of foods, you know, you're eating. Sometimes it can be that you're eating the food at the wrong time, or if you just like switch your eating schedule around, that can be an improvement. But one of the main ones is that I see what people are eating, and in my mind, as I scan through, you know, your diet, automatically I'm looking for nutrients. And so this is one of the things that I've been noticing is, you know, there's a lot of nutrient deficiencies in the diets that I'm seeing, you know, being posted in the program, which is really what prompted me to put this training together. So thank you for participating, first of all, because, you know, now you're going to be able to help a lot of people, you know, since it's making me, you know, address this issue. So to move on, um, we've covered water, and then the next nutrient deficiency that the vast majority of people have is vitamin D. Now, the importance of water, I would say even minerals and vitamin D, is that those three things, okay, the reason why I start everyone out with those three things is because that's what drives digestion. Okay, all the other supplements, all the other nutrients, even if you take them, if you don't address water, minerals, and vitamin D, your body's not going to uptake them. So the reason why I basically tell people, like I implore essentially people to drink water, do minerals and vitamin D, is because that's what's going to help you with everything else. Okay, if you just try to supplement with iron, selenium, or some of these other nutrients I'm going to talk about, and you don't address water first, vitamin D and minerals, your body's not going to be good at uptaking them. And I'm telling you this because I spent thousands on supplements, and a lot of times I was taking, you know, some of these supplements and didn't feel like my body was uptaking these. Vitamin D, right? I used to take, you know, vitamin D supplements, like both D3, or I had one that was like 5,000 IUs, and I took them, but I didn't feel like my body was absorbing them, right? And the reason was because at the time I hadn't addressed my dehydration, I hadn't addressed mineralization, and I was taking the wrong vitamin D supplement, right? So all of these three supplements, basically, this is what the Energy Jumpstart Kit is designed to do, is to basically build a foundation so that all these other nutrients and supplements that I share with you, so that they actually work, right? So I say that because if I share some supplements with you and you go out and buy those, but you don't do the water, minerals, and vitamin D first, I don't want to hear from you that, hey, that supplement didn't work, because I'm telling you right now the reason why that stuff doesn't work. Okay, you got to address that thing first. So if that makes sense, okay, if that makes sense, you know, let me know in the comments below, and let me know that, hey, you understand that the most important thing you can do in order to address your nutrient deficiencies is to hydrate, mineralize, and do your vitamin D. Okay, those are the absolute most important. Without that, your nutrient deficiencies will continue. So now that we have that taken care of, I want to talk about a couple different things that will help you also understand why these nutrient deficiencies are so common. And so, you know, essentially what I talked about right now is your microbiome. right? So your microbiome is what takes care of the food. It digests your food. It basically creates nutrients for you and uptakes nutrients for you. Now, that is basically assuming that you're eating the right foods. So this is basically the other thing that I'm noticing as I'm watching, people's diets and understanding, what people are eating, because this is what I get to see. Okay, and it's almost like I have like this X-ray vision when people share like their food with me. When I see the food, to me, I can pick it out, and what I see is what I consider not real food. And here's what I mean by that. When it comes to food sources, there's essentially a spectrum, and the spectrum basically going from conventional farming practices, basically growing foods in nutrient depleted soils, basically soils that have to be treated with pesticides, herbicides, and things like that. And this food is essentially grown with only three minerals: NPK, nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium. So with only three minerals, that food is essentially demineralized, right? Which is one of the main reasons why I have people mineralize. It's because most food is demineralized. I mean, even organic, which is supposed to be a more nutrient-rich soil and farming practice, um, that doesn't necessarily guarantee that you're going to get all of the minerals and nutrients from the food. And there's two reasons for that. Number one is that a lot of these foods, even if they're organic, they're usually picked before they are ripened. So if you take a fruit and you pick it before it's fully ripe, what that means is essentially that, let me rephrase this. In order for a fruit or a vegetable to really get all the nutrients from the plant or the tree, it needs to ripen. Okay, so the more ripe it is, the more nutrient rich it is. So when you pick it before it's ripe, it hasn't fully gotten all the nutrients out of out of the root, really, but out of the plant is basically the analogy here. So that's basically what's happening, is that you're going to the grocery store and oftentimes you find bananas. They're green, right? Because they're picked before they're fully ripe. So what that means is that that banana didn't have time to really get all the nutrients that it should have gotten. And so even if it's organic, that's basically what's happening, right? So you have to be aware and understand. And again, the only reason why I understand this is because the health of a tree is essentially the same as the health of our gut. And the way that a fruit grows, the way that a seed is created, it relies on all of these things that I learned from brewing beer, right? So this is why this stuff makes sense to me. This is why I see it, and it's like an automatic trigger where a lot of people, they see that, but they don't understand all the inner workings of of a plant. And that's why it's important, and that's why I'm passionate really about sharing this information, is helping you understand food. Essentially, that fruit being ripened and getting all the nutrients, that's essentially digestion happening in the plant, right? And that's what I understand. It's digestion. Same way that it works in your gut, same way that it works in a plant. It's all the same. So hopefully that's all making sense. So understand that that's one of the things that's happening. Now the other thing is, oftentimes when you go to the store, you're buying foods, especially if they're packaged, like anything that's in a box or in a can and things like that. You're going to see sometimes on the label, it says fortified with, vitamins B, folic acid, or whatever it is, iron. What those labels don't say is that oftentimes those, that fortified basically means that they've added synthetic vitamins or nutrients. And in my opinion, the body should not be exposed to anything synthetic. Okay. Who knows what it is? Who knows what effects it has in the body? We don't need synthetic stuff in our bodies. A lot of that is basically toxic stuff that we're going to have to get out of the body later on. And so, that's one of the things. So a lot of people sometimes say oh, I'm eating these foods, and, it says here that it has iron, or it says here that it has a vitamin, B12 or B6, whatever. But you don't know if it's synthetic or not. and the box isn't going to say. But I'm telling you, like if it's boxed, it pretty much likely, especially if it says fortified, it pretty much likely is synthetic. Okay, and this is why like I believe in getting all of your nutrients from whole foods, from real food. And this is where I see that food as not being real. Okay, to me that food is like that was made up, like that's, you know, man-made essentially. So I hope that that's all making sense. Let me check in on you guys. Okay. So all of that being said, let me talk about the most common nutrient deficiencies that I see, and you know what are some of the benefits and things that happen when you are deficient on these. So I'm going to start off with iron, and iron is one of the more common deficiencies. And the way that iron works is this is like one of the most abundant minerals in our bodies. And it's basically used to create hemoglobin. This is basically what makes your blood, it allows your blood to deliver oxygen into the cells of your body. And speaking of oxygen, you know, the reason why oxygen is important is because when your cells of your body don't get oxygen, they basically become acidic. Okay, so this is one of the ways that the body becomes acidic, right? And you know, one way that I think of it is when you know, well, when I brew beer, essentially, yeast, when they ferment, they produce carbon dioxide, and when carbon dioxide dissolves into the beer, oxygen is displaced, right? So that's not necessarily a bad thing, you know, in beer. It's just, you know, kind of like what happens. But if that same process happens in the cells of your body, that basically is what lowers pH in the cells of your body. And that's one of the main reasons why a lot of people experience fatigue and dizziness. Okay, so it's low iron, and that's basically what's happening. It's low oxygen going into the cells of your body. It's funny, I have some kombucha here, and I'm activating the probiotics in it. I have mangoes in here. You can kind of see the, I don't know if you can see the bubbles. I don't know if the camera's catching this, but you can kind of see like some of the bubbles here. So it's active fermentation. This is basically, I mean, this is really like why I understand this whole oxygen, you know, deal that I'm sharing with you. It's the same way. It works the same exact way in the body. So iron deficiency, again, if you are experiencing like that kind of stuff, like that's one of the reasons. Okay, it's not the only reason, it's one of the reasons. Another common nutrient deficiency is selenium. Oh, and before I move on to selenium, one of the things that helped me understand and, you know, makes a lot of sense when it comes to iron is that, you know, since iron is one of those nutrients that's in the blood primarily, this is why it makes so much sense that oftentimes a lot of people, a lot of especially women, tend to become hypothyroid after they have, you know, huge losses of blood, whether it's through heavy menstruation or post-pregnancy, right? Because they lose a lot of blood, they lose a lot of iron, and this is basically what puts them into that category of iron deficiency. So, you know, that's just one thing that may help, you know, some of you out there understand, you know, what is happening, why it's happening, and, you know, so helping you navigate here and helping you figure out what to look into. Next one, selenium. Okay, selenium is super important. And selenium, one of the reasons why selenium is important is because it's an antioxidant. And the thing to understand about selenium is when it comes to thyroid function, you know, thyroid function needs iodine. Okay, and iodine, the way that it should work is you get food sources that have iodide, and that needs to be converted into iodine. And so when that happens, the body basically uses hydrogen peroxide. And the problem with hydrogen peroxide is that it's highly reactive. It's basically, it creates oxidative stress. Okay, so it's not good. Well, selenium is the antioxidant that basically neutralizes that. So what tends to happen oftentimes is that when your gut is toxic, or if you have poor lifestyle habits, like in my case, I was drinking way too much beer, so alcohol, stress, all of these things deplete your selenium levels. And as you start to deplete your selenium levels, that basically leaves less of that antioxidant to basically take care of hydrogen peroxide, which then creates inflammation and antibodies. And that's one of the reasons why one of the lab tests that I tell people is like, hey, if you're experiencing this kind of stuff, one way to know if you're deficient in selenium is to check to see if you have thyroid peroxidase antibodies, because that's basically what's happening is that your body's converting iodide into iodine, and there's not enough selenium to neutralize hydrogen peroxide, which is what causes that inflammation and the antibodies to basically attack the thyroid, right? So that's basically what's going on there. And so selenium, if you're deficient on that, if you start supplementing, like that's one of the things that you're going to notice is your antibodies are going to basically go down. The next one, this one's actually one of my favorite ones that I started to research, and it's zinc. Okay, and zinc is important because number one, it strengthens your immune system. Like I think of zinc and vitamin D as like the two most important immune system boosters out there. But what fascinates me about zinc is that I think of zinc as like that one mineral, that one nutrient that really activates all of your bacteria. Like it's what puts them in motion. I think of it like coffee, or like it's like adrenaline for your gut flora. And one of the things that you'll notice, number one, if you are deficient in zinc, it's harder to heal. Okay, so wound healing gets slower. The opposite of that basically is the higher levels of zinc that you have, the faster your body heals, the faster that you recover, right? So, I remember when I was going through a lot of this, if I ever went out and like worked out, my body was so slow to recover that I practically was not able to exercise or be active. And so taking care of, a zinc deficiency is basically one of the ways that, you can start to be more active, and your body's just going to recover much faster. So that's what I like about zinc. And then the next one is vitamin B12. So vitamin B12 is one of those nutrients that I believe works hand in hand with iron, because it basically is another part that allows the blood to deliver oxygen. I think B12 is more of it's the one that interacts more with your nerve cells than some of the other cells, but it's still basically part of what helps your blood deliver oxygen to these cells. And so similar to iron, it's the same thing. Like if you're low on vitamins, B12, that's one of the reasons why you feel fatigue and dizziness, right? So you can think of it this way: like if you're experiencing a lot of fatigue and dizziness, like the two main nutrients that I would look into would be iron and vitamin B12. The next one is one of my absolute favorite, which is coenzyme Q10. So coenzyme Q10 to me, it's kind of like a switch that you just flip on, and it's what makes the cells of your body produce energy. Okay, this is what activates your mitochondria. What's important to know about coenzyme Q10? It's an antioxidant. It's a vitamin-like compound, and not only is it an antioxidant, but it's primarily an antioxidant for skin cells. So, this is one of the reasons why I remember when I was going through a lot of this. I was 28 at the time, and at age 28, I used to have a lot of people that would tell me that, if I ever had them guess my age, they would say that I'm like 35. And interestingly enough, after I addressed a lot of these issues and basically got a lot more coenzyme Q10 into my diet, a year or two later, when I was like 30, I had a lot of people that basically went the opposite, where they started thinking or guessing that my age was much younger, that I was like 25. And I mean, and I felt like that because I had a ton of energy. But one of the things that coenzyme Q10 does is that it's what keeps your skin looking young. So energy, to me, it's kind of like the fountain of youth, if you will. Like, it's one of those key ingredients to, for me, it's like to maintain that young looking skin and just feeling good overall. So those are primarily like the main nutrients. I mean, I have a whole list that I'll probably be sharing in the energy bootcamp program. But these are like the main ones that I believe need to be addressed. And again, none of these nutrients will work if you don't take care of water, minerals, and vitamin D first. So start with those and then start adding some of these other ones. And so what I want to do now is I want to share with you basically my top sources for a lot of these nutrients. So if you know that you are deficient in one of these specifically, you can take these two nutrients that I'm sharing with you, and these will be good enough. You can also add specific ones if you just know, like, hey, I'm low in iron, I'm low in selenium. You can get a specific like iron supplement or selenium supplement. But I would highly recommend that you do these two. And if you do a specific one, do that in addition to these two that I'm about to share. So the first one is beef organs. Now, I do these beef organs, and again, this I don't consider a supplement, even though it's sold by a company called Ancestral Supplements. The reason why I don't consider a supplement is because it's just basically beef organs in a capsule form. They're desiccated, basically, but the ingredients, which are things like liver, heart, kidney, pancreas, spleen. These are things that you could really just buy from your local farmers market. Like I bought I purchased liver before. I just personally don't like the flavor of it. I don't dislike it, but it's not like my favorite, right? And so all of these I could just buy them and eat them. And that's why I don't think of these as a supplement. It's just, for me, it's just easier. I don't have to cook it. I don't have to worry about the flavor kind of thing. But this is by far like the best source of all of these nutrients that I just shared with you. Like, this is basically how you can address all of them. The only caveat, to this is that if you have poor digestion, if you have a weak immune system, which pretty much everyone that's in this group, that's the reason why you're learning this information, is that oftentimes when you start to give your body nutrients like this, as I mentioned earlier, there's a couple things that can happen. One is, if you don't have the right bacteria, the right gut flora in your microbiome, then your body's not going to digest it properly. It's not going to uptake it properly. Second thing is that if you have bad bacteria, you can be feeding that, some of these pathogens. And oftentimes, like, that's not necessarily like ultimately bad. Because sometimes, like, what's happening is a combination of this. It's you're feeding both the good and the bad. And so there's kind of like a war that happens. And that war that happens is basically your body fighting some of these pathogens and also removing and getting rid of some of the toxins that may be in your body. So there's this detoxification effect that you might feel. And so this is very common with people with autoimmune conditions. So the way that I like to think of that supplement is, prior to doing a detox, and basically, which, everyone that's going through the energy bootcamp coaching program, that's basically what we're going to be doing over the next few weeks. Prior to doing that, I will it's not that I wouldn't recommend these yet, but it's more like, if you do take them, I will start out slow to see how your body reacts. And I would say that before you do your detox that we're going to go through, what I believe is a better option, which is what I shared earlier today, is the blue-green algae drink. Okay, and this is the concentrated form. I showed the diluted version earlier today. Probably posted somewhere in this group. But this is a superfood. And the reason why I like this one is because it's plant-based, and it also has a detox effect. But I think that detox effect of a plant-based food is a little bit different in the sense that I think of it like, number one, a lot of the pathogens that people have in their gut and their microbiome, they don't like plant-based foods. Okay, this is what I think of as a high-frequency food. Okay, pathogens like low-frequency foods. Pathogens like essentially dead food, right? So cooked food, that's low-frequency food. It's dead food. This, as you can tell, maybe you can't, but there's a reason why, the lid has a cheesecloth on it. And I actually normally have this in the refrigerator. It's because this is actually a living food. Okay, there's live enzymes in here. There's like, this is basically a brew, and so this algae is basically alive, and so that's a living food, and it's a high frequency food. And so as a high frequency food, your body uptakes it, pathogens don't eat it, and it has a cleansing effect. And so it's one way to kind of clean out your environment, which kind of brings down your bad bacteria, your level of pathogens in your gut, without that heavy detox effect of fortifying your gut flora and activating all these detox pathways through animal-based nutrients. But essentially, the reason why I like this is because all of the nutrients that you would get from grass-fed beef organs are in here. And so let me read off the the label from this, so you can understand like what are all the nutrients. And you can see like these are the same that I mentioned plus some. So there's vitamin A, calcium, thiamine, pantothenic acid, folate, vitamin E, iodine, manganese, vitamin C, iron, niacin, vitamin B6, vitamin B12, vitamin K, molybdenum, and selenium. So it's essentially all of the nutrient deficiencies that I was just talking about plus some. That's basically what you find in here. And so this is one of the reasons why when I started my journey, I couldn't digest beef to begin with. So, and at the time I actually didn't really know about, beef organs. And so what actually got me through the way that I addressed my nutrient deficiencies was I started with blue-green algae. And as I detoxed my body and then started to restructure my gut flora, that's what then allowed me to go into, animal-based products and basically do things like, beef organs. And again, there's a huge difference. The iron that you find in plant-based foods like blue-green algae is just, non-hemi iron, whereas the iron that you find in beef organs like liver, it's hemi iron, which is basically, the body uptakes a lot more of it. It's just more efficient. And so there's, pros and cons with it. And so, but that's one of the reasons why I personally like to do plant-based foods to detox and animal-based foods to build the body, right? I think of animal-based foods to like feed and heal the physical body, plant-based foods to detox the body and feed your mind, feed your brain, basically. And so hopefully with with this lesson, you're starting to understand and see why I believe, especially for anyone that starts to get into fasting, if you're doing fasting and or even if you're not doing fasting, the two staples in my diet, whether I'm plant-based or doing an animal-based type of diet, are these two products that I just showed you, because that's how I make sure that I don't have nutrient deficiencies. So if you don't get anything else, that's basically what I would get, right? I mean, coenzyme Q10, right? I get it from here. And then I also get the plant-based version. Same exact reason, right? If I get it from an animal-based food first, I may not be able to, uptake it. I may have like a detoxification, effect going on. But if I start out with a plant-based, it allows my body to detoxify and clean. But then again, there's that other side that, on one hand, coenzyme Q10 from animal-based foods will feed like the physical body. The coenzyme Q10 from a plant-based source goes beyond that. It's a higher frequency food. And those are topics that I'll be, teaching later on, because I think they're more advanced. But hopefully you're getting the gist of it. Hopefully you're understanding more or less my thinking process and how I make all of this work. So let me check in with you guys and see. Miriam, good to see you here. Believe it or not, someone wanted me to eat more fortified foods in a protocol, and I won't fortify myself. Thank you. That's awesome. I'm glad that this is making sense. Fenugreek is great for iron. Yes. I haven't really done much of that. These have been like my main two sources. Oh man, I don't know. I hope I don't butcher your name. Is it Leilani? Leilani? Sorry. Hi, nice to meet you. It's the first time I see you here. Welcome. Send me the link to the blue-green algae. So I linked to a blog post in this live video. So I have a link there for the blue-green algae. This one, you're going to see there's a difference because this one I used to get from Dr. Kassar, which he recently stopped selling a lot of his products. But I know that the best source of blue-green algae is from Klamath Lake in Oregon. So I recently just found a company. And so, I mean, I still have some left over here, but I found a different company so that when I run out, that's basically where I plan on getting it. So, just full disclosure, the company that I have linked to, I'm pretty sure that it's the same as this, but I haven't tried it yet. Okay, so I just wanted to, be transparent there on that one. Other than that, that is basically it as far as the topic goes. So, so I'm a little bit early. So if you guys have any questions about either these nutrient deficiencies or anything else, just post in the comments right now, and I'll take some time to answer some of these questions. And I guess while some of you may think if let me talk a little bit about this kombucha. One of the reasons why I use kombucha is because when I first started, like I said, I had a hard time digesting protein, and the acid, the acid that's in kombucha is really good, and it really helps drive digestion. So, my current diet right now, this is kind of like when I envisioned my diet. One of the reasons why I called it Beer Diet Project was because I knew that I was going to be using a lot of fermented foods and drinks in my diet. And so, right now I'm basically eating a lot of grass-fed, grass-finished beef, salt, avocados, right? So if you kind of like go through the nutrients that I just described, like vitamin A, D, coenzyme Q10, these are all fat soluble nutrients, which means your body's much better to uptake them when you're in a ketogenic diet. Okay, so this is one of the reasons why I do a plant-based ketogenic or meat-based ketogenic, but either way, ketogenic diets are so good once you get into it. And trust me, I say this because when I first started, I had a sweet tooth. Okay, I had a hard time, like a really hard time, letting go and giving up sugar. I mean, and I'm a normal human being, so don't think like, because I eat all of this, don't think that I didn't eat bad stuff. Like I still crave, and I still miss like white chocolate macadamia nut cookies, carrot cake, and some of these other things that I used to eat. But now that I've gone into this routine and have felt what my body feels like when I feed it good. And, remember, those of you who may be brand new to following me, when I first started this and I started to understand like gut health and food, I asked myself one question that has changed everything for me. And that question was, what would my body feel like if I just fed it like pure nutrition? Like what is the actual nutrients that my body actually needs? And I can tell you right now that I can go an entire day just drinking this, and my body is better nourished than 90% of people out there. If I add this, I mean, I practically have all the nutrients that my body needs, right? So like eating beef and some of these other ones, like that's kind of like just extra. That's more for, for like muscle growth or other things, right? I mean, depending on what I'm doing, it will be the reason why I would do it. But like if I'm ever wanting to like fast without, doing like a full detox, but want to like continue nourishing, blue-green algae is like my drink. That's my go-to drink. But anyway, so going back to a kombucha, when I had a hard time digesting, protein, um, this is one of the things that I started to use, and sauerkraut, and kombucha. Like, I notice like when I eat that, it just helps my body like digest like beef so much better. And again, when your body digests protein better, that's where you get amino acids. So that's why I mentioned like L-tryptophan. That's an amino acid. You don't need to take this if your body's digesting protein properly, right? So the only reason why I shared this was because I used it as an experiment when I first started out. I couldn't fall asleep, and the reason why I couldn't fall asleep was because I was not digesting protein properly. So when I took this, I'm like, I got really good sleep. But again, don't become dependent on this, because if you're having to take this, what it means is that you're not addressing the real issue, the root cause, which is poor protein digestion, right? So the way that I overcame that was I drank more water, minerals, vitamin D, and then kombucha to kind of help with the, stomach acid and all that kind of stuff. Carmen, what foods contain fatty acids without having to take supplements? So my favorite sources of, fatty foods would be plant-based would be coconut oil, centrifuge coconut oil, avocados, hemp seeds. And then animal-based, when you get meat, I look for the fattiest cuts. So things like ribeye. If I get ground beef, I don't get the lean stuff. I get like the 80%, 20% fat kind of thing. Butter, but again, it has to be grass-fed. Has to be traditionally prepared. Dairy has to be raw, has to be unpasteurized, and when it comes to dairy, like, it's a tricky one, because oftentimes when you have autoimmune conditions, you can't do dairy. Like, a lot of times you'll have allergic reactions to it. It's not the dairy's fault. It's the lack of gut bacteria that's causing all of that. And oftentimes a lot of these reactions also come because people, when they do dairy, they do conventional, they do pasteurized kind of stuff. And so, but the reason why I say that is because when it comes to hormone production, there's just nothing like dairy products. I mean, like raw unpasteurized milk, like that, combined with like, I guess another one for fatty acids will be a raw almond butter. Like that combined with egg yolks. Egg yolks have, cholesterol. Milk, raw unpasteurized milk, has cholesterol. All hormones, steroid hormones, are derived from cholesterol. Okay, like when I do that, I'm telling, like, it's like I'm back as a teenager. Like my hormone production just goes through the roof. My testosterone levels go through the roof, and but I had to obviously fix my microbiome and fix my gut before I was able to take on those foods. So I will start out with plant-based, which, if you follow my journey on my fan page, that's what I did. I did a plant-based ketogenic diet first. So I was like doing coconut oil, avocados, and hemp seeds. And that gave me a way to detoxify my body. And in that process, I was able to restructure my gut flora. I did my probiotics and did all of that, which then allowed me to introduce animal-based foods. And, one of my probiotics that I did was actually a milk probiotic drink. And that's what allowed me to basically take, or allow me to basically drink, raw unpasteurized milk without getting some of the allergic reactions that I used to get. So all in all, though, you can start to see why, vitamin D, coenzyme Q10, all of these things just work so much better on a ketogenic diet. And that's why my diet is primarily ketogenic. So even though I can't eat carbs now, I kind of just choose not to, because of that question. What would my body feel like if I just fed it like good stuff? And I'm obsessed with this. Like, the more that I eat like this, like the better that I feel, the leaner that I get. I rely a lot less on supplements, and and I don't consider these supplements, the beef organs or the blue green algae, like that's just food, and it's like pure nutrition. So hope all of that made sense, and that's it, guys. So if you guys don't have any more questions, this will be the last chance. I'm done, I guess. So give you a couple seconds here. If not, then thank you guys for joining me. I appreciate. Remember, I have the link to the blog that I used as a reference to walk me through this, so you can read the blog post. There's a little bit more detail there. There's links and resources to a lot of these products that I mentioned. It's something that I really hope serves you guys, and I hope that all these lessons really make sense and you start to understand the importance of going through the trainings as I share them in order. Okay, there's a reason why I structure all of this in order, is because I want you guys to experience the same results. And I know that if you go in order, that gives you the best chance at getting those results. And that's it. So all of that being said, again, thank you guys. Hope you have a great evening. And Cindy, amazing that you're sharing all of your wisdom, good things to know. You're welcome. All right, guys, have a good night, and I will see you guys later. Good night.